The Whitmore family's annual strategic summit was a polished affair hosted in their Charleston headquarters, a historic red brick building remodeled into a sleek, glass-paneled command center overlooking the Ashley River. It had been 5 years since I last walked these halls. I was 27 then, freshly graduated from Columbia, with dual master's degrees in business analytics and industrial engineering. That was also the day I was publicly dismissed by my uncle, Charles Whitmore. Today, I walked in, not as Sienna Blake, the non-blood niece they pushed out, but as CEO of Meridian Core Solutions. Quietly, we had become Whitmore Industries' largest private client, channeling just over $74 million, 0 cents a year, through their procurement network. They had no idea it was me. "The numbers this quarter are holding strong," my cousin Bennett declared, tapping through yet another flashy presentation, "thanks largely to our long-term anchor account, Meridian Core Solutions." I stirred my espresso with practiced calm, hiding the grin threatening my composure. I still remembered Bennett's words from 5 years ago. "You're brilliant, Sienna, but this isn't your place. This family runs on legacy and name." Uncle Charles had nodded in agreement. "Talent is fine, but blood is permanent." I looked down at my tablet, pulling up internal financial files delivered by a helpful former intern who'd grown tired of watching fraud go unchecked. Bennett had been cooking numbers for 10 months, losses masked by creative accounting, gaps plugged only by the uninterrupted flow of Meridian's contracts. "Miss Blake," a soft voice broke my thoughts. It was Lena, Uncle Charles's executive assistant. She gestured to the boardroom doors. "They're ready for your presentation." I rose, smoothing the lapel of my tailored charcoal suit. Sharp lines, understated power, a far cry from the department store dress I wore when I was told I'd never be Whitmore material. As I approached the podium, Bennett froze mid-slide. "Sienna? What? What are you doing here? This meeting is for senior executives only." I paused, locking eyes with every confused face at the table. "I'm here representing Meridian Core Solutions. We need to renegotiate our contracts immediately before renewal." Silence. Uncle Charles narrowed his eyes. "That's not how this works. Meridian always sends a contracted intermediary." I smiled. "They do. And you're looking at her." Silence. Bennett looked like he'd forgotten how to blink. My cousin Caroline dropped her silver stylus onto the conference table, the sound oddly loud against the tension in the room. Then came the wave, the slow, sinking realization, sweeping across every carefully powdered face in the boardroom. That's not possible," Uncle Charles finally said, his voice catching. You're running some small consulting firm. We did a full background check," Caroline added, brows furrowing. "The system that helps face at all of those presents also great in safe type." "This is about revenge, isn't it?" Bennett said, his voice cracking despite his best efforts to keep it firm. "Because we didn't give you a seat at the table?" I paused at the doorway. The memory of that afternoon 5 years ago hit me like a cold wind. Bennett's smug dismissal, Uncle Charles's firm rejection, Caroline's snide laugh as I walked out of the office with my resume in one hand and disappointment tightening in my chest. "No, Bennett," I replied, locking eyes with him. "This isn't revenge." I took a step closer. "This is business. The same business you said I'd never understand." I glanced at my watch. 9 sharp. "Don't be late." Turned, letting the henchman marinate behind me. The voices fractured. Caroline demanding clarification. Charles barking orders. Bennett babbling defenses no one believed anymore. Michael stood waiting by the elevator, professional as always, offering a chilled bottle of sparkling water. "They're unraveling," he said with a small smirk. "Exactly as planned," I replied, stepping inside the elevator. "If that boardroom twist hit hard, tomorrow's going to break them. And if you're watching this unfold, subscribe, because the audit meeting, that's where the real story begins." I pressed the button for the lobby. "Everything in place for tomorrow?" I asked, eyes forward. "Full audit reports," Michael confirmed. "Breakdowns of every manipulated line item, plus a dependency flowchart that'll make their stomachs flip." I smiled faintly. They won't know what hit them. Images flashed through my mind. Uncle Charles's stunned silence, Bennett's pale desperation, Caroline's frantic whispers, the same family that once told me I didn't fit their pedigree. "The termination letter?" I asked. "I'll have the final version in your inbox by 7, Michael replied. "Good," I said. "I want to review it before they see it." He hesitated. "You're really pulling every contract?" I met his gaze. "Let's just say, they're about to learn what earned leverage really looks like." The next morning, I arrived at Whitmore Industries headquarters an hour early, the same building that once turned me away without a second thought. This time, they'd be the ones watching the doors close. A security guard in the Whitmore Industries lobby, same one from 5 years ago, stood up so fast he nearly spilled his coffee. "Miss Blake," he stammered, blinking in surprise. "Welcome back." He hesitated for a beat. "The board's already gathering upstairs." "Early," I murmured, stepping past him. Funny what the scent of collapse does to people. Inside the executive elevator, the polished chrome caught my reflection. The woman they dismissed years ago, too soft, too distant from the Whitmore bloodline, was now the one holding the pen poised over their future. When I entered the boardroom, the air was thick with tension. Uncle Charles sat stiffly at the head of the table, though his posture had lost its bite. Bennett hunched beside the company counsel, shadows under his eyes. The independent board members were already murmuring, flipping through the summaries they'd received earlier that morning. Behind me, my audit team entered in silence. Analysts, forensic accountants, and operations strategists, each one hand-picked, each one embedded in this company's ecosystem for years, watching, gathering, waiting. I stepped to the podium and met the room with a calm smile. "Good morning. Shall we begin?" "Deanna," Charles said, his voice stripped of its usual control. "Before we proceed, perhaps we could speak privately?" I tilted my head. "I think we've had enough private family conversations, don't you?" Then I nodded toward Michael. "Distribute the reports, please." The rustle of paper swept the room like an incoming storm. Then came the gasps. A soft curse. Someone muttered, This can't be accurate. "These numbers?" Another board member asked, flipping a page in disbelief. "Oh, they're accurate," I said, clicking the screen to my first slide. "Let's start with the creative accounting." I turned my gaze to Bennett. "Would you like to explain how over $7,800,000 in losses were quietly tucked under operational irregularities?" His attorney began to interject, but I raised a hand. "Or shall we move on to the fabricated client metrics? The ghost assets? Or the part where, without Meridian Core Solutions contracts, Whitmore Industries is technically insolvent?" "You're trying to ruin us," Bennett croaked. I didn't flinch. "No, you did that all by yourself. We're still family," he added weakly. "Family?" I echoed. "You mean, when you told investors I wasn't cut out for executive leadership? When Uncle Charles said I didn't have the right lineage for the Whitmore name?" "That was years ago," Charles said hastily. "Yes," I replied. "And while you polished old crests, I built something real." I clicked to the next slide. "Today, Meridian Core is 3 times your size, and as of this quarter, 47% of Whitmore's revenue is tied directly to us." The room froze. "This revenue disappears next Monday," I said flatly. "If I pull the contract." The room erupted. Voices tangled over one another. Chairs scraped back in alarm. The legal team huddled in a frenzy. One board member actually swore out loud, his copy of the report crumpling in his hands. And then, Bennett cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he muttered, sinking into his seat, his confidence collapsing. "You can't just pull out, Sienna." Uncle Charles stood, his face blotched with fury. "We'll pursue legal action." "On what grounds?" I asked, my voice suddenly cooler than the AC humming through the vents. "That your niece, who you dismissed, outperformed your entire executive board." "Please, let your attorneys depose Bennett. I'd love for them to walk through the phantom invoices and buried liabilities with a federal panel." One of the senior board members, Mr. Halford, with silver hair and a crimson tie, cleared his throat. "It's Blake," he said carefully. "Given what we've seen today, we may need to discuss urgent leadership transitions." "Leadership transitions?" Bennett gasped. "This is our company." "Actually," I said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. "Maybe not for long." Inside were 2 neatly labeled documents. "Option 1, I began. Whitmore Industries agrees to a full executive restructure. Bennett resigns. The board installs independent oversight. Meridian Core Solutions continues a reduced partnership with direct supervision and quarterly audits." "And option 2? Uncle Charles asked, though his voice had lost its bark. "A walk," I said plainly. "Every contract withdrawn, and our forensic report goes straight to the feds." I glanced at the time. "You have 1 hour." "This isn't business," Bennett snapped, voice frayed. "It's revenge." "No," I replied quietly. "It's exactly what you always said business was. Ruthless, merit-based, and reserved for those who prove they belong." I gathered my tablet, my notes, and my silence. "I'll be in the office you once told me I'd never deserve," I added, pausing at the door. The CEO suite. Funny how things turn. I left them surrounded by facts, panic, and years of their own denial. By the time I reached my private suite overlooking Charleston Harbor, my phone was vibrating nonstop. My mother. "How could you do this to your uncle?" My father. "You're tearing the family apart." My cousins. You've ruined everything. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened a dusty folder in my inbox, the rejection email from Uncle Charles, dated exactly 5 years ago. Dear Sienna, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, we believe you lack the leadership instincts required at Whitmore Industries. Perhaps a support role would better suit your strengths. I smiled and hit archive. Sincerely, Charles Whitmore. I printed the old rejection email, the one that haunted me for years, and placed it gently on what would soon be my new desk. The board, now staring at undeniable evidence of Bennett's fraudulent reporting and Whitmore Industries' complete dependency on Meridian Core Solutions, had only one path forward: accept my terms, or watch everything crumble. By sunset, it was done. Bennett submitted his resignation, quietly, without ceremony, his pride more wounded than his legacy ever was. Uncle Charles, stripped of meaningful influence, was ushered into early retirement. No one objected, no one thanked him, and Whitmore Industries, once a monument to nepotism and old Southern wealth, would now operate under my direct oversight. The empire they once told me I wasn't worthy of now answered to me. Michael entered as the final signatures dried, carrying a bottle of chilled champagne and 2 fluted glasses. "Congratulations," he said with a grin, "on your very elegant execution. Not a takeover," I replied softly, watching through the glass as Bennett and Uncle Charles packed their offices into plain cardboard boxes. Just business, the kind they swore I'd never understand. My phone buzzed. Again, dozens of unread messages. My mother, "You didn't have to humiliate them." To the grunt, "My father, this isn't how family handles disagreements." My cousins, "We grew up together. How could you do this?" I opened the family group chat, typed one line, "Don't worry about the family name. Whitmore Industries is finally in qualified hands." Then I silenced the phone and turned toward the window. The sun dipped low over Charleston Harbor, painting the sky in streaks of gold and violet. A different kind of peace settled in me, not the fragile peace of their approval, but the clarity that comes from earned power. Because sometimes, success isn't about the position you begged for. It's about building something so undeniable that they're forced to negotiate on your terms. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming their boss. Uncle Charles had been right about one thing, though. I was never qualified to work at Whitmore Industries. I was qualified to own it. "Hey, before you go, how was your day? Really, I mean it. In a world that moves this fast, we don't always stop and ask each other that. But I want to know. Drop it in the comments. Good, bad, or somewhere in between. I'm listening. Because sometimes, just being heard is the first step toward feeling seen. And if you've made it this far, thank you. Not just for hearing my story, but for walking through the quiet victories and hard-earned lessons with me. When I was told I didn't belong at their table, I didn't fight for a seat. I built my own, and in time, they had no choice but to stand around mine. So now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been overlooked, underestimated, shut out by the very people who were supposed to believe in you? Tell me how you kept going, or where you are now, and I'll cheer you on the way no one else did. Because here's what I know for sure: quiet strength makes the loudest impact. And if any part of this resonated, hit that subscribe button, not just for me, for you. Because this isn't just about power plays or revenge, it's about finding your voice, owning your worth, and rewriting your place in the world. You don't need permission to begin, you don't need approval to grow, and you definitely don't need anyone's blessing to become who you were always meant to be. So, archive that rejection, build what they said you couldn't, and when they finally recognize you, make sure it's on your terms. I'll be right here, sharing stories like mine and waiting to hear yours. Because sometimes, the best success story starts with a no. You turned into power.